So after much wait and anticipation, the big moment is finally upon us with the official release of DC's The Blue Beetle. And if you're thinking to yourself, why the hell would the release of DC's The Blue Beetle be a big moment, you're probably not alone. And while the numbers are not as bad as they could have been, they still don't paint an optimistic picture for the franchise going forward. So for many of you like myself, who are not overly familiar with the Blue Beetle is a name shared by several fictional superheroes appearing in American comic books published by various companies throughout the years. Some of the most notable versions include the original Blue Beetle, who was named Dan Garrett, that was first published by Fox Comics in 1939. He was a police officer who used a special vitamin to gain superhuman strength and agility. Dan Garrett's stories were later acquired by Charlton Comics, who changed the character to Ted Kord. Kord was a brilliant inventor and scientist who took on the mantle of the Blue Beetle after the death of Garrett. He had no superhuman abilities, but relied on his intelligence, combat skills, and gadgets. But the most well-known and contemporary Blue Beetle is named Jaime Reyes and was created for DC Comics in 2006. Reyes is a teenager who discovers a scarab-shaped alien artifact that fuses with his body, giving him a powerful suit of alien armor that grants him various abilities including energy blasts and flight. Given the character's popularity, the 2023 film focuses on Reyes' version of the Blue Beetle. And while not as expensive as the majority of superhero films that we have seen in modern day, the Blue Beetle still had a production budget estimated at around $120 million, with a break-even point of around $250 million. For a relatively unknown character, the movie had a steep climb just to get out of the red. One could even argue the movie was destined to fail just based on its cost and relatively low interest. Initial projections for the film's opening weekend ranged from as low as 12 to 17 million, which would have been a disaster for Warner Brothers. And after a slightly better than expected showing for Thursday night previews that brought in roughly 3.3 million, these projections were increased to between 22 and 30 million for the film's domestic debut weekend. Now, while the increased projections were good news for the franchise, I wouldn't be taking a victory lap if I were Warner Brothers, as this is still the worst showing DC has seen in any Thursday night preview in 2023. Shazam! Fury of the Gods was able to bring in 3.4 million on its opening Thursday night previews, and The Flash generated around 9.7 million. And let's just say those films did not go on to set the box office on fire. Friday night sales brought the total up to approximately $10 million, including the $3.3 million from Thursday night previews. Saturday brought in an additional $7.5 to $9 million, leading to a total weekend box office of close to $20 million heading into Sunday. When all is said and done, although the Blue Beetle will beat initial expectations, it will likely fall short of the $30 million mark, surpassing Shazam as DC's lowest opening weekend this year. But for most Hollywood media outlets, it would appear as if Warner Brothers has a big win on their hands. It seems that the new strategy is setting the bar so low that as long as you don't trip and fall, your film will be considered successful. And while analysts keeps trying to generate some hype about the movie dethroning Barbie as the weekend's #1 film, let's not forget that Barbie has been out for almost a full month at this point. And whether you are a fan of the Barbie movie or not, it generated around $160 million in its opening weekend, or more than 5 times what's expected out of the Blue Beetle. So while I have seen the headlines about the Blue Beetle taking the #1 spot from Barbie, how much of an accomplishment is this really? And while the Blue Beetle was actually a better movie than I thought it would be, and one of DC's better superhero movies this year in my opinion, the bigger problem is still that people are not happy with the franchise right now altogether. It seems as though the bad reputation of the DCEU has attached to everything DC related, to the point that expectations can't get any lower. And until DC addresses the underlying issues facing the franchise, all of their movies will continue to face the same uphill battle. And while it is possible that the Blue Beetle crawls its way into profitability the same way Elementals did for Disney, making movies with the goal of not losing money is a losing attitude. The idea is to applaud for breaking records, not for breaking even. But I will rest easy knowing that we still have Aquaman to save the year for DC. And if you made it this far and you like this type of content, please like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you know when new videos come out. Thank you and have a great one.